What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. So it is the fall of 2021, and what does that mean? That means that the strappers are finally here. Now, if you guys haven't seen me upload any of the fishing videos, because we are actually scouting right now. Now, we have been hitting a couple areas, been trying to see if we can get some big fish. We've been catching a lot of fish that are actually small schoolies. In this video, we're going to be talking about how you can actually locate where the strappers are at. A lot of individuals have been asking me and emailing me of how to locate delta strappers. So we're gonna get right to it. The strappers are anadromous fish, meaning that these fish will migrate just like the salmon. They're gonna be migrating into the California Delta, just like all other species. It's just the same as American shad, salmon, sturgeon. And what they're gonna do is that when they come into Central or East or North Delta, what they're gonna do is that they will come into the system to spawn. So once they're done spawning, they're gonna stick around. Some fish are gonna be taken off. But the question is, when is the right time? You can have the right tackle, you got the right lures, you got the right rod and reel and line, but it's just not having the right tackle. It's about being at the right place, right time, which will increase your chances at catching a fish. Now, first question is, Fing, how do you locate the delta strappers? Do you just go to spots or wait till people tell you when it's biting? Actually, no. We're gonna get right down to business and figure exactly where the fish are at and find out how they're traveling, when and where, and how to catch them. I have learned and read articles, and also I Googled online a whole bunch of articles to figure out where these fish are traveling. Now, the king salmon are also coming into the system as well right now, and the king salmon the season is open. Strapper, it's open all year round. But the thing is that not everybody's a salmon fisherman, not everybody's a strapper fisherman, but today we're gonna be talking specifically about the strappers. The strappers in the summertime, what happens is that they actually go out to the beaches or the coastline of California coast, and they'll go up to the north coast or the west or the south coast. I'm not talking all the way down to San Diego. I'm talking about just in the surrounding areas of the San Francisco Bay. Now, when they're in the San Francisco Bay, what they're gonna do is that they're gonna be eating bait. Now, the different baits that's out there is sand fleas. They're also going to be eating other fishes like mackerel or sardines or anchovies, whatever they can find. Individuals asking me, you know what, why do they see people catch strappers in the summertime in the beaches out in the ocean, but they don't catch them in the delta, which is quite smaller? Well, just remember that not all the strappers will go out to the Bay Area. Some will stay residential and they'll stay in the surrounding areas. The majority of the main schools will be heading out west into the summer because it's hot and these fish are not gonna stick around. They're done spawning. Now, the cycle is that in the summertime, they're in the summer beaches, out there feeding and running at colder water. Now, stripers specifically, just wanna let you guys know, they like to stay in 55 to 65 degree weather. You kind of give or take, you kind of go over 65 degrees or a little bit under, say, 55 degrees. But if you want the best time to fish for strappers, my recommendation is between 55 and 65 degrees. Now, that's if you're on a boat. Even if you're on the bank, you're like, well, I don't have a fish finder. Well, bring out a thermometer. Or you could actually go online. You guys, right here in this link right here, if you go into westernbass.com, on the top right corner, and I'm not gonna show you, this is where you can actually see the temperature and the surrounding areas of where you're fishing. And you can look at all these areas, see the temperature change at the time and the date, what's happening, all right? So that right there is definitely very, very important. It comes right into this fall season right now. We are in August right now, you guys. It is almost at the end of August and the strappers are already into the system. Now, when they're in the system, you're gonna be asking like, well, how do I fish for the strappers? Where do I fish for the strappers? Well, if you're gonna be looking on this map right here, they're gonna be coming from the San Francisco Bay, all right? And they're gonna be coming in and running into big schools. A stripper can travel anywhere from, I think, 10, 15, or 20 miles per day. Just remember, while we're working or while we're going our daily lives, doing our own thing at home, these strappers are coming into the system. The question is, are they in? Yes, they are. Now, people are gonna be asking like, well, where should I be fishing? If you wanna be fishing for strappers right now, you definitely wanna go and fish in the West Delta. When I refer to the West Delta, I'm not talking about San Francisco Bay. You can still catch them out there as well, but they're most likely gonna be in the Bay Point, Pittsburgh, Antioch. If you wanna catch some of these bigger schools, they're gonna be out there. You wanna fish at one of the hot spots that are fishing from a pier, go to the Antioch Pier. That's one of the main local spots that everybody hits up. It's a honey hole, and all the strappers will be coming through this main river right here. Once they're into the system, it is the fall. We're gonna be keeping an eye on the cooler weather. When's the right time? Remember, it's all about the tide where I fish. Most likely is in the Central, East, or North Delta. However, some areas, it does not matter at all. But when it's a high tide, just remember, these fish are traveling from far away. They do not want to burn a lot of calories to feed. So they wait until the tide gets higher and the bait fish actually moves up to feed, and that's when they come and feed as well. Now, people are also asking me, what can I also catch them on? Just remember, they eat sand fleas. That means that when they come into the system, they can also eat the red crawdads and the blue crawdads in the system on the California Delta. So that also means that these fish are not just going to be feeding on bait fish, they also feed on crustaceans. When we're transitioning to the September, October, and November time, they're going to be into the system, all right? You want to pay attention, and because these fish are going to be feeding and they're going to be spawning, all right? Now for me, I typically like to fish 2 hours before the high tide and 2 hours after high tide. I keep it real simple. There's many sites that you can find delta tides and figure out which area you're fishing, and you can locate where these fish are at. Remember, a lot of the main schools or the bigger schools are still feeding and they're still taking their time, and they're in the Wells Delta. But once they do come in, they're gonna be in East Delta, they all split up, all right? A lot of the schools are going together and the big schools are no longer gonna be together. Smaller fish typically swims with the same size school. The bigger fish also swims with the same size school as well. So you wanna keep an eye on that. If you're catching fish of the same size, that gives you an idea, that's what the school is. But sometimes you might not catch a big school. You might just get 1-2 hits because you got those loner fish that could be bigger or smaller that's by themselves. So November, December, January, it gets cold. A lot of these fish do turn back. However, I have my experience of fishing in the North and the East Delta. Some of these strappers, they do not go home at all, all right? They do stay in the Delta, and they do go to the rivers like Macomb River, they go to the Feather River, or even the American River, and they reside in there, all right? It doesn't matter how cold it is, they'll stay in there until the springtime, and they'll come back out, and that's what happens. When it's the springtime, they're gonna be traveling back into these fish that's been staying into the system since the winter time. You're going to be asking like, well, are these the same fish that have been staying here? Just remember, they're spawning again in the springtime. In the fall, you get a lot of bites, all right? You get the bigger schools and you're gonna get more action. However, when you're fishing in the springtime, you don't get more bites. However, some areas you do get that, you get lucky. But the thing about it is that when it hits a springtime, you're not particularly gonna get a lot of bites, but you're gonna get a lot of quality bites, all right? It's quantity versus quality. Springtime for me, I would say, is quality. I never believed it in myself back in the days. Now, I've changed my ways. I've caught my biggest fish and more quality fish in the springtime in the California Delta. In the fall, I catch more of an abundance of fish, more schools, and it's easier to find the schools. If you're gonna be asking me like, well, do you just look at the maps and what happens from the spring going to the summer? Well, just remember that they do the same cycle. Once they're done spawning in the springtime, they head back out to the West Delta and they head back into the summer beaches. So it's the same cycle. The summertime, they're at the beach. The fall, they come into the East Delta, South Delta, North Delta. And then with spring, some of them will go back, some of them will stay. And then with summertime, they go right back to the beach. So it's the same cycle over and over. That's what the term anadromous fish means. You're migrating into the system to spawn, and when they're done, they head back out. In the summertime, a lot of the big saltwater boat charters, they catch halibut and they also catch an abundance of stripers as well. So if you're questioning yourself, well, I don't, have access to a boat. I don't have access to some of the bank areas, right? Well, you want to go ahead and pay attention, because if you want to save a little bit of money and you want to catch fish and you want to follow some of these big charter boats, just remember, you can go out to the saltwater areas. You can go out to the San Francisco Bay and you can actually get onto one of the boat charters and they'll take you on a halibut and striper fishing. Remember, in the summertime, I don't really fish for stripers as much because it tends to be slower in the Delta. However, I do go out to the saltwater and I fish for halibut. Reason I do fish for halibut is because they're very similar to a striper. They're predator fish, all right? Meaning that they ambush bait, all right? So the thing about it is that when I go out into saltwater in the summertime, I also use striper methods and techniques to catch halibut as well. This year I caught my biggest halibut at 16 pounds, 10 ounces at 36 inches. I was ecstatic. And I didn't go out to the saltwater as much as I liked. I only went, 3 trips this year. However, I'm back into striper fishing, guys. Follow me the next few coming days and weeks. I will be doing weekly fishing reports and see what the fish are at. If you're gonna be asking me, is this weekend a good time and place to fish in the East and North Delta? I would say if you get lucky, you might get 1 or 2, but if you want to increase your chances, you guys, just remember, the smaller schools and some of the fish are slowly coming into the delta and you're fishing in your local areas. But if you want to catch the main schools, they're still in the West Delta. But I would say give it about another week or 2 or 3 weeks. Once it really cools down, they're going to be coming into the system and you want to go to your local hotspot. Next weekend, the weather is going to drop down to about 87, 88 degrees. It's 100 degrees this weekend and it's low tide. So your chances of catching these fish are typically kind of low right now. But if you want to increase your chances and you don't have a lot of time to get on the water like myself, you're mostly likely working and you got a lot of things to do, then you want to go ahead and fish next week. In my opinion, next week, if you want to increase your chances of catching fish for next week, you want to catch them early before the sun comes up, once the sun comes up, or the evening time right before it gets dark and that high tide right there. So remember, it's high tide you want to fish in the morning and evening. And if you get lucky, you get some wind, that definitely helps out. With the cooler temperature, you also want to go ahead and take that into consideration as well. Now remember, if you're fishing the Sacramento River area, the salmon bite might kick on if the water temperature drops. Now, there's 2 maps that I definitely do use. This is a map that you can no longer find, you guys, or if you don't have access because they no longer make these. The thing about it is that this is nothing more, just another map with just launch sites. However, sometimes I like it in paper. You can go to a store and find a local fishing map. Now you're asking me, well, what's a fishing map? Fishing map can give you maybe if you're lucky, like this map right here, you guys. This is a second map that I also use. California Delta Boaters Map and Visitor's Guide, fishing hotspots included. It does not tell you exactly what to use and how to catch these fish. If you can look closely right here, it says striper. There'll be a little guy right here. It does not typically tell you exactly what these fish are going to be biting on. I don't know if they still make this map, but if they do, you can go to californiadelta.org and you can order this map right here. Sometimes it's better to have it in paper and just a study. Just remember that if you're fishing, it's not always about just luck, but if you take your time to learn the waters, learn how these fish are traveling. And what's great about social media is that you can go on Facebook or Instagram. If you follow some of these striper local guys that do fish locally or are very passionate for stripers, you can actually see when they're catching it. And the thing about it is that they're gonna most likely blur the background like myself, but you give you an idea. You can message me, you guys, on Instagram. You can do a direct message, or you could go on Facebook, find me on Facebook as well, or you can email me at fishinlunkers247@gmail.com. Pay attention to it. Don't neglect it. Let's get out there. Let's go fishing, guys. I'll see you guys in the next episode. In the next episode, I'll be showing you guys what I'm gonna be using to catch these fish, to search for them and throw bigger baits when it's the right time, when the bigger bite does display itself. You wanna go be entered in the giveaway, go ahead and comment below. Someone will win this revenge jig right here. So pay attention, guys. I'll see you in the next episode. Let's go fishing.
Acorn, 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 acorn.